Hey folks, Aaron here. Welcome back to the anime review. Today, we're looking at probably one of my favorite shows from the summer 2020 anime season, and that is The God of High School. Now, if you guys don't know the origins of The God of High School, I'll give you a quick refresher course on that. So, The God of High School originally was a manhwa, and if you guys don't know what manhwa is, it's basically, I want to say a Korean comic or Korean manga. I'm going to tell you why in a second. I don't really like calling Korean manga because there's a reason I don't really particularly like that fond name of it, but the concept is that on WEBTOONs, which is a big site for various like manhwa, you know, God of High School came out, and I was really getting into it because it just had everything I liked as a shonen fan. Like I do like shonen, but I'm very picky of shonen. Like I don't want my shonen to always be atypical series. I don't want the kind of character growth where you have this character starting off weak and then getting stronger. I want it where he already got a sense of strength, or she's got a sense of strength already, and it starts off at a level that feels realistic. And in many ways, The God of High School, which is far from realistic because the concept's in it, it feels like a more flowing shonen. It feels like it does things that I wish more shonen would do, where these characters are inherently very strong. They unlock their inner strength, which makes them stronger, but they always feel at this nice balance where it's like each one of them has a particular strength versus, all the characters becoming either really weak at one point or really strong. Case in point, like Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball in general has always had this kind of back and forth with the characters. You have sometimes the characters being really strong, sometimes being weak, etc. I kind of can't stand that anymore. As I get older, you kind of want more from your series, and shonen especially has always been this very trope themed kind of genre. So I really like the God of High School for that. Now I didn't keep up with the manhwa because I was watching it. Actually, I was reading it as it was being done. So I got maybe past the tournament arc, and I got a little bit past where they started unlocking some more stuff of the character backgrounds. But then I stopped. I dead stopped with it, and it kind of fell into this obscurity in my mind because I forgot most of it. I forgot most of the concepts. I forgot the character names. I forgot all that stuff. I'm happy because WEBTOONs and Crunchyroll have teamed up recently to bring out two popular manhwa from WEBTOONs, and one would being Tower of God, which I know had some mixed results. Some people loved it. Some people thought it was like all over the place. I'm one of those people. I'm dead middle because I do really like it. I loved the WEBTOON. I've read a lot of the WEBTOON. But watching the anime kind of felt like I was just retracing the steps of the webtoon, if that makes sense. And that's why kind of the way The God of High School felt like a refresher course. Because, yeah, it does have some problems. I'm going to get into those issues when I talk more about the series in the review. But it's a good show. And that's why I think it is missed on this show because of various reasons. But we'll talk more about that later. So, for people that are brand new to this and have no idea what The God of High School is, I'll give you a quick kind of concept of it. So The God of High School follows Jin Mori and several other characters as they enter a tournament in Seoul, South Korea, which is called The God of High School. It's named after the series. And the whole point is that these characters are given an invitation. If they fight and win, they will get any wish they have granted, any one wish. And it starts off pretty simple. Like, you have these characters of various, degrees. You have, people that fight just regular karate. You have people that fight jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, etc. You have them all fighting in these different ways. And it feels normal. But something I knew already because I've read the manhwa, and something that I kind of want to say is very spoiled very strongly in the opening, if you really pay attention to it, is the bigger aspect of the God of High School, which is definitely gods and demons and other things like that. If you are someone who knows the lore of various demons and gods in both Korean and also Japanese folklore, you kind of have an idea of what the story is with these characters, especially when they start using their powers, because as the series progresses, like Jin Mori, the main character, gets various powers, and you find out who he is. I'm not going to spoil it just in case you guys haven't watched the whole thing. And, Doei, which is also one of his friends, he gets various powers that come from I want to say a giant turtle. And there's more to that if you get into the thing. I'm not gonna go super heavy into the lore because I feel like I'd spend hours and hours doing that, and I feel that's kind of a point, not the main point. The main point is a bigger arc of the story where these characters are fighting for a cause. Every single character that's in the tournament has a reason for being in the tournament. I think that's really cool. That was one of my biggest enjoyable concepts of The God of High School, where you had every character feeling like they're fighting not just because, oh yeah, we just want to test their strength, more so because they wanted to show the world that they had something to prove. Like Jin Mori, for example, is trying to find the whereabouts of his grandfather who disappeared. Dawei is trying to fight because his best friend is in the hospital and facing death. And you have all these various characters kind of just popping up with different stories, different backgrounds. Now, this is where The God of High School does things partially right and partially wrong. So I think to avoid what happened in the Tower of God, and maybe this was done during the production of Tower of God, or maybe this was done after. I can't really tell you that. But I mean, seeing that they came out relatively close with each other, I'm going to say not so much it was done for the thought process of it, but it was probably done as a secondary concept. The Tower, excuse me, the God of High School skips a lot of elements of the Webtoon series. It goes past so much. Like, it skips whole elements of story because it's just trying to get to the meat and potatoes of the tale. You know, like for example, one of the best examples is Jin Mori meets a teacher at one point that teaches him how acupuncture works with your fingers, like how to hit certain points of your body, and how hitting those points will give you enhanced strength, enhanced speed and mobility, etc. But, you know, they kind of flash past that. They go like this. The guy shows up in Jin Mori's life in one scene, and then the next episode, Jin Mori knows how to use the power of acupuncture, like hitting the spots on his body. They don't do a good job of explaining that. In the webtoons, or the manhwa, excuse me, they go more into depth with it, where they actually have him being taught and trained for like several chapters, and it's necessary because you're like, oh, I need to know how this works. You know, you want to see how it works. You want to see why Jin Mori is so poor at it first, because when he does it initially, he actually debilitates his own body. Like, he hits the points, and he does this epic scene where he looks like he's about to fight and go into like this hardcore mode of winning, and then falls on his face because he goes, oh, I hit the wrong spots, and he completely disables his body in the process. You would understand that more, and I think the joke would have been better had you read the webtoons and knew what that moment was, because I went back and I went, oh, I forgot about that. Yes, it makes more sense now. Versus you just seeing the anime kind of goes just past that too fast, and that's probably what is the biggest killer of the God of High School for most people, is that it speeds by so much with the plot. It feels like there are parts skipped, there are chapters fused together in one episode. Not even the point like some series. I mean, because let's be real. I don't care who you are when it comes to watching anime. I've seen enough anime to know that most manga adaptations that become anime adaptations end up becoming where they skip more chapters than they should. They end up fusing chapters together. They end up being like, oh, light novels, for example, when they get adapted into anime, they skip like giant chunks of the story material. Because, let's face it, a light novel and an anime episode, you know, that's two different things entirely. One episode can be like maybe 3 or 4 pages of a chapter in many ways, because some chapters are really long. And even besides that, some chapters last so long that, you know, it's like there's only 3 chapters in a book. And so you have this dire need to kind of find this middle ground of where you want to go with an anime. Do you want to just go beat by beat of the light novel or the manga adaptation, or do you want to make it its own thing? The God of High School goes into its own thing where it skips a lot. It feels like it's a rush thing. It rushes past all the stuff. There are times where even the fights feel extremely rushed. But this is why I'm going to say right now, it works. It works because it skips a lot of the unnecessary elements of the God of High School equally. While it does skip some of the stuff that you need for more substance to the characters and stuff like that, it skips the fluff. It skips a lot of the elements. Like, for example, you really don't need 15 chapters of a training arc. You don't need 100 chapters to find a character's plot. You don't need any of that stuff in the God of High School. A lot of times, if you're smart enough, you just go with this, oh, okay, that makes sense, or let me put the pieces together. Okay, this is kind of putting together, and this kind of works and stuff like that. Now, if you're someone who's watching the God of High School anticipating a deep, lengthy story about the gods, the demons that are talked about in the series, this ain't the series for you. You're going to get a very quick and dry lesson of everything, because, like, they show gods like Amaterasu, they show gods like the Monkey King. All these characters are shown so quickly and so briefly that unless you know some lore for them, you will not understand any of their powers, their abilities, and how the characters kind of go into their powers. Like Mirai is the sword user of the group, like the trio that encompass the main cast of the God of High School. And I forget what her character is supposed to be. I remember it was I think it's Liu Bei, I want to say, who's not really a god. He's like one of the skilled warriors, but I believe I could be wrong with that too, because that's the thing where also, if you don't know exactly who they are, you also will find yourself confused and be like, oh, well, okay, that kind of makes sense, or it doesn't make sense here. And I know people are going to correct me in the comments below. By the way, feel free to correct me in the comments below about, you know, who Mira's, I want to say almost stand. I said that because it reminds me of, you know, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure when it comes to that. Her power, Churburuk, I think it's called, or Chubiyuk. I can't say that word very well. But it's like an inner body that they use to like unleash gods and deities for their powers. That's like the whole concept of the tournament, of how people unlock that ability as it goes on. The God of High School is a confusing mess in many ways. I think that is something, even when you do a review for it like I'm doing right now, you realize as you go through it. It's like explaining it is simple. You know, it's people going to a tournament to fight, while in behind the scenes there's this kind of battle going on between gods and demons and people that want to resurrect said god and resurrect and keep, you know, the demons at bay and stuff like that. There's all that going behind the scenes, and you're like, wait, this is so much. It's information overload. And that's the problem why some people are like literally hating the anime, because it's so quick that it goes through these things. It doesn't stick with anything too long. You're not going to have a character focused on for longer than maybe a half episode, because they don't need to. They don't want to. They want to go right into the potatoes of the story. They want, even past the meat, they want to go to the potatoes of the story. They want to just go, here, this is what we have. This is the fights that we have from between them. And I'll tell you that right now, the God of High School is stellar when it comes to the animation / fights. The fights in the series are beautifully animated. The characters are also beautifully animated. That's what makes it so enjoyable to watch. Story-wise, yeah, it's not the best story in the world. But here's where I will say why it's one of my favorites of the summer 2020 season. There was never a time with the God of High School where I felt, man, I hate this episode, or man, this episode was weird, or man, this episode didn't do something for me. It always felt enthralling somehow. I always felt like I was enjoying the series. I always felt that it was a moment that I could get more out of the show. Yes, obviously I would love to have more story elements. I would love to have more lore on some of the gods and some of the fighters, etc. But it never pushed me away. It never made me go, oh, you know, this could have been done better, or you know, I feel like they overshot this, or no. And maybe if you're a WEBTOON fan of the original manhwa for the God of High School, maybe then you'll feel like, oh, well, you know, there's certainly elements you wanted to see. And also, I know one of the biggest things that I'll talk about real fast, people were complaining about the name changes, a lot of stuff. You have to remember that this is a Southern Korean work being translated to Japanese, and then also being translated to English. You were getting 3 different variants on things. So a lot of the stories within, especially of some of the gods and deities, and some of the demons, etc., are kind of mixed into this confusion where some of them are named after more Japanese concepts, and then some are named from the Korean concepts, and even some are named, I noticed, from Chinese concepts. You have to remember that because of that, there's a lot of times where they change names to fit more of a Japanese trend or an English trend. Because, like, for example, the Monkey King, I think one of the biggest complaints of the final episode, which aired today, was that the Monkey King's weapons were changed completely. And I'm not going to try to say names because I always butcher the names of them. But their weapons' names were changed completely, and people were like, no, they went to the comment section right away of YouTube videos and reactions, going, I hate this is the reason why I hate this show, because, you know, blah, 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 blah. Yes, but again, it's being translated into multiple works. How can you really translate something to someone and expect them to understand it if it's not a word they know, or if it's not even a concept they know? So it's like, you have to understand that, yes, it sucks that various things are being changed in terms of narrative and names and stuff like that, but it's not ever so bad that it ruins the whole plot. Like, I even noticed Jin Mori's name, if you, I think, let me see, if I go to the high school, God of High School Mal page, I think Jin Mori's name is like Jin Mori, like it's spelled in 3 parts, because if you guys don't know, Korean names are always spelled with 3 parts, like Park Lee, Jun, or stuff like that. And in the Crunchyroll subtitles, it's usually just one word. Like Dawe is a split in how it's done in Korean, but in how Japanese subtitles or English subtitles, excuse me, have it as, they have a da-we, like it's a separate, 2 separate entities. These are things that you don't realize, but you also have to understand that's why name changes had to occur. That's why concepts had to be changed. It makes sense for the greater good of the series. I wouldn't want so much confusion that I can't understand anything because they're trying to throw in the original source material with, you know, a Japanese context to it, and then Japanese, you know, fortunately, then have to translate to English and you know, Japanese subtitles, and go, wait, that word doesn't exist in our culture. How do we do that? You know, that's why. So it's like, push that hate aside for a second when it comes to that, and also push the hate aside for this whole series when it comes to, yes, the story's bad, the story's all over the place because of it, but it's not inherently a horrible story. It's a fun story. It's trying to focus on action and fights, and I think that series does a phenomenal job on that, versus how a lot of shonen works. This goes back to what my issues with shonen is, and I mentioned it earlier, like of what I want to talk about. One of my biggest gripes about shonen works is how long it takes for some fights to go. Dragon Ball, Naruto, all these series have fights that last dozens of episodes, and sometimes just them talking for 50 minutes, just constantly talking for like, and I mean like when I say 50 minutes, like 2 episodes, 3 episodes long of talking. Then they fight for like 2 seconds, and then more talking. God of High School talks for like 2 seconds, and then goes right to a fight. And they do that so often that you're like, wait, what happened? They just go right into it like that. And I love that about the show. I think that's one of the coolest elements because they're going for a very nice style. And I think that's one of the coolest elements of the whole show in general is that style. It's got a very heavy stylish theme to it where everything about God of High School is just fun. It's enjoyable. It's exciting. And I'll tell you, the last episode sent chills down my spine. It was so good. I had goosebumps on my arms because it was just so phenomenal to watch, Jim Mori and his group fight against this giant deity that appeared. And the battle that took place was so good. The music was just perfect for it. I loved it with all my heart. That's why, if I had to rate God of High School between A through F, I'm going to give it an A-. You might think, Aaron, that's very high. It's got a very mediocre story when it comes to a lot of things, and it feels very rushed. I get that. I know a lot of people were saying I was very generous with it on Twitter. But to me, it does everything I want for a shonen. I want action that's done right. I want a great fight. I want characters I kind of like that don't have to have a really overly long storyline or arc to them. It skips that. It goes into just, here's a fight, here's a character, here's a fight, here's a character. And it nails that perfectly. And I'll tell you, the animation's stellar, the music, the opening is awesome, the ending's awesome. Everything about this show, other than the story, is awesome. That's why I can't say that it's a bad show. It actually, as a shonen, works phenomenally because it's a shonen type that I really want more series to kind of inhabit. I want more series to not focus on making a shonen 100,000 episodes because it wants to create to make popularity and money from it. I want shonen to be enjoyable for the fact that you have characters fighting. That's the concept of it. You have characters growing from weak characters to strong. I'm okay with that if it's not 30 episodes of him growing or her growing to just get a little bit stronger than either losing a fight or winning a fight to a predictable concept. I'll tell you right now, the God of High School, try to predict some of the fights. You'll be wrong with some of them. Some of the fights are actually very unpredictable where, besides Jin Mori and his cast, which you kind of predict them winning or losing certain fights, some fights are like, oh shit, I didn't think that guy would win, or I didn't see that comeback coming. That's what I love about the show. It keeps you constantly wanting more of it, and very few shonen have ever done that for me personally. But anyways, guys and girls, that is my opinion. I would love to hear your comments in the comments section below. If you have different opinions, feel free to let me know. I don't throw hate on any guys or girls for the show and what you feel for a series. I'm always open to the shows because there's a lot of shows that I utterly hate that people love, and vice versa. There's some shows I love and other people hate it. This is the anime community. I know sometimes people can be toxic. I'm not one of those people. I always like to be open-minded when it comes to anime reviews and anime scores and all that stuff. So let me know and feel free to bash God of High School. I won't, trust me, I won't hate you for it. I get it. I understand what's flawed about the show. Equally, I understand what I love about the show, so please understand that too. And I will talk to you guys later. God bless you all. Have a great one until our paths cross in the next review. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.